Hi guys, so today I want to talk to you about some of my favourite audiobooks or radio show adaptations of books. This was originally going to be a top 5, but I think I've gone over 5 slightly, so we're just going to call it general favourites. And I'm going to share with you some of my favourite books that I love in audio format, either because I prefer them in audiobook format, or because there's something new and special about them in a radio adaptation, or because they're just some of my favourite books and I love all the more that I can experience them in audio format as well, so I can consume them over and over again really easily. Let us begin, shall we? Now the first one's actually a bit of a trick because the radio adaptation actually came before the book, and that is the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. I don't know if you are all aware of this, but Douglas Adams originally wrote the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as a radio show, and because the radio show was so popular, he then wrote a series of books. Now I have here the primary phase, which is the main story that most of you know. I also have in physical CD the secondary phase and the tertiary phase. I have to admit, the first one is my favourite, although I like the second. By the time the third one comes around, it starts to become a little bit mad and disjointed for me. But I absolutely love the first in the series, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I have listened to this over and over again since I was a child. I absolutely love it. I think it's one of the funniest radio shows ever recorded, and I can't believe how lucky I was to go and see the radio show performed live as well a couple of years ago. The original cast got back together and did a one-time tour round Britain, doing one night in various different cities, performing the original radio show. Cross between a radio show and a play, although they didn't move particularly much. There was a little bit more acting than just voice acting, and it was so strange to see the faces behind the voices speaking the same words I'd been listening to for such a long time. And as the narrator of the book, they actually had Neil Gaiman guest star as the voice actor, which was amazing. It was one of the best nights ever. I wasn't actually feeling very well that night, but I went and it was so good, and I'm so glad I went to see that. Just like interesting tidbit is that the book series actually changes, and as the series goes on past the first one, differs from the radio show. So they're both kind of different as well if you're a fan of the books and want to try the radio show. As it develops, they have different stories, so highly recommend checking out this. Now the next is one of my all-time favourite audiobooks, and other than Harry Potter, it's probably the one I've listened to the most, and it is Terry Pratchett's Going Postal. Now all of the Terry Pratchett audiobooks are narrated by the wonderful Tony Robinson, who was in Blackadder as Baldric or presents Time Team. He does loads of other things, but those are just two of the things you might know him from. And another one of his many achievements is to be the voice narrator of the Terry Pratchett audiobooks. Now I have quite a few of these downloaded and physical form. I have Jingo and Making Money and Pyramids, and I have more in some of the Tiffany Aching series. Because I enjoy the Terry Pratchett books so much, I love Tony Robinson's narration, I quite often get the audio versions of some of my favourites so that I can listen to them after I've read the books, just like to reconsume them easily. But Going Postal is my favourite. It's my favourite Terry Pratchett book, and I listen to this all the time. Like I said, Tony Robinson just does the voices so magnificently. They're so funny, and he gives all the characters different voices. And I cannot imagine anybody else voicing these audiobooks. And now even when I read the physical copy of Going Postal, I just like hear the characters speaking in those wonderful voices that Tony Robinson gave them. Like, yeah, they bring them to life in a really magical way, and I'd highly recommend listening to the Terry Pratchett books on audiobook. Now I couldn't have filmed this video without mentioning Harry Potter. This is a mess, as you can see. Most of the other audiobooks I owned on cassette tape when I was younger, so like number 1 and 2 and 3 I all had on cassette tape originally when I first got them on audiobook, and as the years have gone on I have then downloaded the audiobooks for the first few so that I have them on my computer and my iPhone, but this is one of the ones I do have a physical CD copy of, and that is The Half-Blood Prince, which is obviously fallen apart, but it doesn't really matter. And this thing is huge. This one's 21 hours, and it's not even the longest Harry Potter book, so they are lots of fun, the Harry Potter audiobooks. And this one's read by Stephen Fry. So there are 2 narrators of the Harry Potter audiobooks in English. There is Stephen Fry, who reads the original English publications of the books, and Jim Dale, who reads the American publications of the books with like little changes in the words. He reads those, but Jim Dale is also English. They're both kind of read with like a British accent, because I know I had this conversation with Jen recently and she was like, I don't want to listen to the American ones because it would be weird in an American accent. I'm like, no, they're still in a British accent, and I actually adore both of them. And as the years have gone by, I have also purchased the Jim Dale versions of all of the audiobooks, and now have all the Stephen Fry's and all of the Jim Dales. I love them both. They're different and unique, and Stephen Fry just has a gorgeous voice, and it's what I associate with Harry Potter audiobooks because it's what I first experienced them through, it's what I listened to all the first few on, and I cannot listen to the first two with Jim Dale. However, Jim Dale does the best voices, and I love when an audiobook is read and the voice actor does different voices for the character. As a kid, I used to listen to the Harry Potter audiobooks to send me to sleep, and I think if you are a Harry Potter fan, then Harry Potter audiobooks are a must. Book series I don't have physical copies with because I've only ever downloaded them is The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. Now this is another case of these being some of my favourite books. However, they are very large books if you've ever seen them. They begin with Eragon and they're a high fantasy dragon series, and they're big books. So what I love about having the audiobook versions of these is that I can easily reread them without having to read the entire book again. Although I prefer to read a book first time on the physical copy, I think especially for large books, it's nice to be able to just switch on the audiobook, and once you're familiar enough with the audiobook, you don't even need to listen to it from start to finish. I can just like pick things up halfway through if I listened to the other half like a year ago and quite happily like plod along with that because I'm so familiar with these characters and their story that it's just like being immersed back in their world. The other one that length is key is the Game of Thrones series, or Song of Ice and Fire series, beginning with Game of Thrones. Now I have read the first 4 Game of Thrones books, and I have listened to 2 of them on audiobook and 2 of them I have read physically. The 2 I've listened to on audiobook I have not read physically. And I have found as I've been going through the series that I far prefer listening to the series than I do reading it. I enjoy the series. I think it's a really excellent series. I've given all of the books 4 stars or more. However, I find myself far more engaged and interested in the plot and unable to put the story down when I'm listening to it on audiobook than when I do it when I'm reading it. Whereas anytime I've listened to one on audiobook, I've like got through it in weeks rather than months. I'd highly recommend checking out the audiobooks for Song of Ice and Fire if you found it tricky to like power through the books. I have some more radio show adaptations to share with you. The first being The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is the 3rd one. This is actually a friend's and I borrowed it from her. I borrowed the first 2 as well and listened to the whole series on radio show adaptation, and it was so fantastic. They do change little bits of the plot slightly, obviously, because it's a radio show adaptation, so it needs to work to that format a little bit better than a straight up reading of the book would, but they have different narrators voice different characters, and I really like this, and I think this is another one. If you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, I'd check out this. I also want to mention the audiobook of The Hobbit. Now I listened to this on audiobook rather than radio adaptation, and what I love about listening to The Hobbit on audiobook is that it sings the songs, and The Hobbit is such a lyrical book, and I'm sure if you read it you'll know how important the songs are to the narrative and how many of them there are. So it's so lovely having them sung. It feels like a book that's meant to be spoken out loud, so I really like that about that. And last but not least is radio show adaptations of some of my favourite stories with a new twist, and those are The Further Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. These are BBC radio collection, and they are new stories. They are radio stories, Sherlock Holmes and Watson stories, but not the original stories. They're new stories for fans of Sherlock Holmes who want more mysteries. BBC do a series of Sherlock Holmes mysteries in radio adaptation, and I really enjoy these. I read new Sherlock Holmes stories that have been written by different authors, and I think these BBC radio plays are fantastic. If you are a Sherlock Holmes fan, they added an extra sense of mystery to the stories, so love these and would highly recommend them. And those are all of the audiobooks I wanted to talk to you. I mean, when I was a kid there were so many books I used to like listening to on cassette tapes, but to this day these are the ones I continuously listen to still and are all worth checking out. If you're already exposed to these stories and want a new way to consume them, or just want to get your first experience of some of these stories, all excellent, and never feel ashamed of listening to audiobooks. Please let me know what your favourite audiobooks are down in the comments below. I would love to know. And until next time guys, happy reading, and I'll see y'all again soon. Bye!